So Tim is here to talk about the fires in Santa Rosa, or in Sonoma County. He's a recycling and public education manager for Napa Recycling and Waste Services. He initially came into recycling at Middlebury College and has been at Napa Recycling since 2005. He's also a NCRA board member, which means that he has drink tickets. He has one drink ticket left, and then. Okay, go.
All right, so a nice uplifting topic before we finish, disasters. So of course, this is my second rodeo with disaster speaking here. 2 years ago, we learned about our earthquake debris. So now the wildfires, a bigger disaster. So these are just some of the stats. I mean, everybody was breathing horrible, acrid smoke. I'm sure all of you were everywhere all over Northern California those few weeks in October. You know, I work in Napa. We're the hauler and the processor in City of Napa and Southern Napa County, and we had a pretty big impact. I don't work in Sonoma County, but it was about tenfold over there. So, I mean, I'm going to mostly focus on Napa, but it'll touch on some of the things just were happening on a much larger scale in Sonoma County, and there was awful stuff in Mendocino County and Southern California and everywhere, obviously, too. But a lot of these topics are going to be fairly common throughout. You know, one of the things that is crazy is that we had like 7,000 tons of debris total from the Napa earthquake in 2014, and it's over 1 million tons so far from the wildfires, and a lot of that has been hauled by contractors that were, you know, through the EPA and federal and Cal OES. I know the Clover Flat landfill, which is a small landfill in northern Napa County, has used up 3 years of its airspace, so it's going to close 3 years earlier than it was previously because of some of the earthquake debris. And we'll touch on some of the stuff we got with our organics as well. So the fires started on a Sunday night. You know, on Monday morning, it was kind of in the middle of a disaster, and we were dealing with it. Took some of the stuff we learned from the earthquake, but also this was different. It was prolonged. It didn't just happen in 30 seconds. It happened over a few weeks. And so we were providing services during a natural disaster, which I think was somewhat unique to a wildfire. That's one of our bill inserts on the left that we ended up sending out about fire debris. We had to kind of do a lot of outreach about fire debris, even though we couldn't haul it because it had to be you know, checked for hazardous waste, the ash and all those things. The one thing we were dealing with was regular service. We had a lot of evacuated areas, and just kind of getting, our office was without power. Our facility was unaffected, but we also had to deal with the smoke, and that's a picture from just kind of in Napa. We had record levels of toxic smoke, and we had to shut down our MuRF because we couldn't actually operate under those conditions, even with our N95 rated respirators. We'll talk about food waste. That was one of the things that I didn't realize, but when you lose power for multiple days, you end up with a lot of spoiled food. And that at the residential sites, and a lot of our outreach is surrounding what to do with that as well. So social media is really important here. A lot of times we don't get a lot of traction on our general outreach, but people do look to Twitter and Facebook when there's an emergency. And this was something we did learn in the in the earthquakes, and we got back in the fires where we were having 2,000, 3,000 people kind of being reached by our Facebook posts. And boosting, right, for like $10 you boost it, and that's something you should always do. That's not just in a disaster. If you want anybody to see your post, you have to boost it. That's the way Facebook works. Nobody else will see it anymore. So that's key. You know, if maybe I spent $10 on this post about kind of what to do with your food waste, right? Empty out your containers and put that in the compost, and then put the containers in the recycling or the garbage. And then just coordinating your messaging with the city and county, and using kind of along with other methods. The local radio station was kind of on air basically 24/7, and they were giving out a lot of information, and so we got the information about, you know, we're providing service. If your street's open and you're not evacuated, we're going to be there. We obviously can't go to evacuated areas to pick up your garbage, but otherwise we were out there servicing. So that was some of the info we got out there. That first picture is actually from, I don't know if anybody saw that really harrowing video of Berkeley firefighters driving up to Santa Rosa and kind of showing up not knowing that it was a fire that burned down a huge part of a city. I noticed that picture is actually from it, it must have been the service day the next day, and there's so many burning carts in that video. That's what that picture is taken from. Hazardous waste crews have to go and remediate on all the burn sites, and we had to do some outreach for people. It's like, I know you have to wait, but if you're going to handle the debris removal yourself, you need to get kind of the okay to be able to do that and to dispose of that at our transfer station. So a lot of federal and state contractors have done the debris removal. And then the facilities, once you've gotten signed off, the facilities can get our facilities could get it. You could basically sign up for FEMA and you could go through and get your debris removed through the government, or you could sign a waiver and do it yourself. And about 50-50 is how that went, and I think people thought they would have to go through the bureaucracy. It turns out that the government cleanup's basically done, and all the people who are going to hire their own contractors can't find contractors to do it fast enough. So that's something to be kind of learned in when you're doing outreach if this happens again, is that sometimes there's just a lack of, when there's a big fire, a disaster like this, there's just a lack of contractor crews that can get out and do work on that magnitude. So we have a composting facility and a MuRF. So this was where we focus, is that we've gotten over 7,000 tons additional material from the fires, and that's from Napa, and also we get, I think it's about a quarter of Sonoma County's material right now as well. And a lot of it was burned and a lot of it wasn't. And if you think about it, we were getting county trucks, PG&E trucks, landscapers, people were stuffing their carts. They were doing a lot of after the fact, defensible space work. And also, it's like, whoa, I got to clear out this brush. And then also there was just a lot of dangerous, like dead trees, or people were worried about stuff. And so we're just finally seeing the tonnage kind of going back to normal right now. We heard about Wood-A-Geddon in the biomass markets. One of the things is we've gotten a lot of tree trunks and stumps out of this from burned trees, and we were able to work on biofilters and chipping wood, and we've probably chipped, I think, got over 5,000 tons of wood to make into biofilters, both for our processing organics receiving building, but also for a few other sites as well. This is something that came up with, was a flood of donations, and I put that link to a article that was going around the internet about, stop donating so much stuff. It's a waste, and it's creating a lot of garbage. There was just a lot of people, and it's all goodwill, right? People are trying to do the right thing, but giving clothes and toothpaste and all these things, and it became this management issue at the donation center, or at the response centers, where they just were overwhelmed. And we saw it where we would see pallets of clothes or bottled water that end up getting thrown in debris boxes, and just people were overwhelmed. So I think that's one of those, the messaging's tricky to your customers, is people are trying to do the right thing, but kind of focus it towards, giving money and things like that if they want to help. One of the cool things was actually in Napa, a pop-up shop opened just for donation goods. So you could go in there and take all that stuff for free if you had been affected by the fires. A couple of other not directly related to the wildfires, messaging that we've kind of pigtailed in the last few months is, don't burn your carts up with hot coals from your fireplace or from your restaurant's wood-fired grill. That's been an issue in the past, and this is a good point, is people are pretty sensitive to fire, so we've done a lot more outreach around that. And then also just composting all your spoiled food, because people had spoiled food. This is kind of hey, maybe we have an in to getting them to participate in our organics programs. And then the defensible spaces, compost your yard waste as well. The grocery stores were something, these are pictures from the earthquake, but it shows you similar thing happened in the fires. The pictures aren't as cool because it's just spoiled food on shelves with no power. They end up getting huge amounts of food that has to get thrown away. And we've gotten a grant from Cal Recycle, and we're going to be installing a food waste packaging system in the next few months. So We haven't had it. We didn't have it for the last few disasters, but we're going to have a system to use all the time for food waste. But in the case whenever the next one happens, we'll be able to at least process the food waste through that. Quick kind of touch on some of our impacts as a company. We lost 260 out of 4,500 of our residential accounts in our Napa County unincorporated service area. The fire didn't burn actually into the city of Napa. It was just in that kind of area in the more rural area. But about 1,000 melted carts. Fortunately, we're actually going through a cart replacement phase in the next few years. So it was a lot of mostly old equipment, but we have had a shortage for the last few months. And it was during a really busy time of year. There was a PGA golf tournament. It was during Crush. We had to kind of scramble with the debris boxes. And we're going to be busy with C&D over the next couple of years. One of the things was that's a picture of one of the wineries that did burn on the left, but actually very few of our commercial businesses were impacted. It was really mostly residential. All right, so I'm almost finished, but just kind of wanted to talk about next steps for disasters. So we've had a flood and a earthquake and wildfires. I've been really fascinated with the Rocky Mountain locust, which caused all the horrible locust plagues in the West, including California in the 1800s. Apparently, humans accidentally caused its extinction in the late 1800s by plowing the areas of the river bottoms where they would breed and have eggs. And so we've actually are probably out of the woods on a locust plague, although with climate change, I'm sure something else is on the horizon. So there you go. That's it. Frogs, yeah.
Any questions on this disaster for Tim?